Elisha Tompkins parked the squad car outside a three-story brick building on North 10th Street and turned off the engine. Marquis Jones in the passenger seat, finishing his coffee from a paper cup and looking out at the cluster of police cars in the yard. It was 7 o'clock on a Monday morning, and the air was still cool from the October night, but the sun was already promising a hot day. The radios in the cars crackled with the chatter of dispatchers, and patrolmen scurried between squad cars preparing for their shifts. 2 dead, second-floor apartment, Marquis said, folding a cup and tucking it into his jacket pocket. Neighbors called the police at 12:43 in the morning. The first patrol officers arrived 8 minutes later. Elisha nodded and got out of the car. 42 years and 15 years on the force had taught her not to jump to conclusions, but her instincts were already telling her that this case wasn't going to be easy. Too many shots fired for a random robbery, too late at night for a domestic dispute. The neighborhood was relatively quiet, working middle class, families with kids, retirees, not a place for a showdown between gangbangers or drug dealers. Patrol Officer Davis met them at the entrance to the building. A young white guy, second year with the department, he was always accurate in his reports and didn't panic at the sight of blood. He escorted them up the narrow stairs to the second floor, telling them the details of the call along the way. Downstairs, neighbor Mrs. Hampton called. Said she heard multiple gunshots and the sound of a car driving away. When Rodriguez and I arrived, the front door to the building was unlocked and the apartment door was open. The bodies were discovered immediately. There was no one alive in the apartment. Davis stopped in front of door number 21. The medical examiner arrived at 1:30. Technicians started work at 2 in the morning. The apartment door was wide open, yellow tape enclosing the perimeter of the crime scene. The hallway smelled of gunpowder and something else, a sweet smell of blood that Elisha recognized unmistakably. It was joined by the faint scent of a woman's perfume and the smell of cooled coffee from the kitchen. "What do we have on the victims?" she asked Davis. 28-year-old Kira Bell, apartment owner, worked for the city government, city planning department. 30-year-old Damian Rice, according to the paperwork in his wallet, is a long-haul truck driver, Reynolds Transportation. According to neighbors, dated about 6 months. The patrolman looked in his notebook. Both killed by multiple gunshots to the chest and head. The medical examiner counted a preliminary count of 15 to 20 entry wounds on each body. Elisha put on latex gloves and booties, and Marquise repeated her movements. They slowly entered the apartment and stopped in a small hallway. To the right was the kitchen with white cabinets and an old gas stove, and to the left was the living room with a couch, chair, and television. Directly in front of them began a short hallway leading to the bedroom and bathroom. The apartment was modestly furnished but clean and neat. Framed photos hung on the walls, Kira and her friends, family snapshots, landscapes. The first body lay in the living room next to the couch, between the coffee table and the TV. A young black woman in homemade clothes, gray sweatpants and a pink cotton t-shirt that said University of Oklahoma. Her dark hair was braided into neat pigtails, and a thin gold ring glistened on the ring finger of her left hand. A few dark stains on the beige carpet and the wall behind the couch said she'd fallen almost immediately after the first shots, before she could make it to the exit. Kira Bell, Marquis pronounced, making notes in a leather notebook. Divorce filed 2 years ago, maiden name Davis, took her husband's last name after marriage and kept it after the divorce. Rented this apartment for a year and a half. The second body was between the living room and the kitchen, at the threshold. A man of medium height, athletic build, wearing dark jeans and a plaid shirt of red and blue colors. The shirt was marred by multiple bullet holes, the fabric soaked with blood and darkened. His face was contorted with a pre-mortem grimace of pain and surprise, but one could see that in life he had been an attractive man with correct facial features. Damian Rice, Marquis said, studying a driver's license from the victim's wallet. 30 years old, address in Tulsa, so he was visiting Kira over the weekend or on a business trip here. Dr. Patel, the Indian origin medical examiner, rose from his knees next to the second body and removed bloody rubber gloves. A short man with graying temples, he had worked with the Oklahoma City police for 20 years and had seen things. Preliminary report is 15 to 20 shots each, 9mm caliber, judging from the entry wounds and tissue deformation. Death occurred within minutes from multiple vital organ injuries and blood loss. "Any signs of close-range gunfire?" asked Elisha. "On both victims, no. Shot from at least 2 to 3 meters away. Judging from the trajectory of the bullets, the woman was killed first, then the man tried to get to the exit but didn't make it." Dr. Patel pointed to the traces of blood on the floor. "See? Damien tried to crawl toward the door, but was hit in the head with control shots." Elisha slowly walked around the two bodies, scrutinizing the apartment's furnishings. The furniture was in its place, no signs of struggle, attempts to flee or resistance. The couch cushions lay flat. The magazines on the coffee table were neatly stacked. The television was on, showing some kind of late-night movie with the sound muted. On the coffee table were 2 glasses of leftover red wine and a white plate of unfinished cheese, crackers, and grapes. "A romantic evening," remarked the Marquis. "They didn't expect trouble." "Exactly. They were having a quiet time at home, drinking wine, watching TV. Then someone knocked or rang the doorbell." Elisha walked to the front door and scrutinized the lock. No sign of forced entry. They let the killer in on their own. Forensic technician Ronald Smith was collecting shell casings from the living room floor and hallway, carefully placing them with tweezers into numbered clear plastic bags. A tall, thin black man, he had worked in the technical department for 8 years and was known for his meticulousness and accuracy in his work. 37 shell casings total, he announced, rising from his knees and rubbing his lower back. All 9mm parabellum, standard. The shooter moved around the apartment. Some of the casings were lying by the front door, some in the center of the living room, a few in the hallway leading to the bedroom. 37 shots, Elisha repeated slowly. "That's a lot even for a professional killer. Someone wanted to be absolutely sure the victims were dead or acted out of passion." "Or both," Marquis added, recording the technician's statement. "Perhaps the killer knew the victims personally and killed not only to kill, but for his own gratification." Elisha made her way to Kira's bedroom. The room was decorated in pastel colors, pale blue wallpaper, white furniture, silver-framed photographs on the nightstand. The bed was made with pajamas on it. Apparently Kira was going to go to bed after her guest left. An ironing board with a half-ironed blouse stood in the corner, a basket of laundry beside it. She opened the top drawer of the bedside table and found blisters of birth control pills, a tube of hand cream, a few hair clips. The second drawer held documents, a copy of her divorce certificate, her employment contract with the city government, her health insurance. "Marquis, come here," she called to her partner. He came over and she showed him the divorce certificate. "Kira Davis, by marriage bell, divorced from Trayvon Bell on May 23rd, 2022. Reason for divorce is irreconcilable differences." "Standard wording," remarked Marquis. But the divorce was finalized quickly, just 4 months after the petition was filed. Usually the procedure takes longer. Elisha found another file folder in the desk drawer. Among the utility bills and bank statements lay a few sheets that caught her eye. They were printouts of emails from the attorney and copies of police statements. "Look at this," she told Marquis. "Kira went to the police 3 times about threats from her ex-husband. The last time was a month before his arrest. She asked for a restraining order to be issued but was denied due to lack of evidence." Marquis read copies of the statements. Trayvon threatened to kill her if she filed for divorce, then threatened to kill her and her new boyfriend when he found out she was seeing someone else. Classic domestic violence situation. They returned to the living room where the technicians were finishing up their work. Ronald was taking pictures of where the casings had fallen and the trajectories of the bullets. Another technician was taking fingerprints off doorknobs and surfaces the killer might have touched. "Anything interesting?" asked Elisha of the fingerprint technician. "Lots of different marks on doorknobs and furniture, but most belonged to the victims. A few unidentified prints on the front door and door jamb. Probably the killer's. The technician packed the plastic print cards into a container. I'll send it to the lab for comparison with the database. What about the weapon? Did you find a gun? Asked Marquis. No, the killer took it with him. Judging by the casings and the nature of the wounds, a semi-automatic pistol was used, most likely a Glock or similar model. Standard capacity magazine holds 17 rounds, but the shooter reloaded at least twice. Alicia stepped out onto the balcony of the apartment and looked around the courtyard. There was a parking space directly below the balcony, probably where the killer's car was parked. The neighboring buildings were close enough, but there were no lights in the windows, and it was unlikely anyone had seen the shooter's face at midnight. Let's talk to the neighbors, she suggested to Marquise. They went down a floor below and knocked on the door of apartment number 11. An elderly white woman in a pink terry-cloth robe and house slippers opened. Her eyes were red from sleep and stress, her hair disheveled. She looked to be about 65 years old, moving slowly, leaning on a cane. Mrs. Caroline Hampton, she introduced herself in a shaky voice. I'm the one who called the police. My God, what a horror is going on in the world. Detective Tompkins, Detective Jones, the police officers showed their badges. Tell me in detail what you heard last night. Mrs. Hampton invited them into her living room, where the television was still burning, and motioned for them to sit down on the worn sofa. It was about midnight, maybe 12:10. I suffer from insomnia, I take medication, but it doesn't always help. Lying in bed, reading a book. She spoke slowly, stopping often to catch her breath. The upstairs neighbors sometimes play loud music on weekends, but Kira has always been a quiet girl. It was perfectly quiet that time, even their TV was running softly. And then, what happened? Nudged her gently by Marquis. First, I heard the front door of the entrance hall slamming, then footsteps on the stairs. Heavy male footsteps, not hurried. I thought it was Damien coming back. He sometimes went out to smoke in the yard. The woman rubbed the waistband of her robe nervously. Then the shooting started. First 3 or 4 shots very quickly, one after another. I thought they were firecrackers or fireworks at first, but the sound was so sharp, angry. What happened after the first shots? A pause of about 5 or 10 seconds, then shooting again, a few more shots, then a pause again, and then shots again. The whole thing lasted probably a minute or a minute and a half, but it seemed like an eternity to me. Mrs. Hampton shuddered at the memory. After the shooting stopped, I heard footsteps in the apartment upstairs, then the door slammed, and someone ran quickly down the stairs. Did you hear voices? Screams? Words? Asked Alicia. No voices, just gunshots and footsteps. Maybe at the beginning someone said something, but I couldn't make it out. And after the shooting there was absolute silence, very eerie. And then what happened? I heard a car start up in the yard and drive away quickly. The motor was running roughly, like an old car or truck. Then it was quiet, and I lay in bed for about 10 minutes, afraid to move. The old woman rubbed her temples with her fingers. Then I did get up, locked the door, and called 911. Told the dispatcher she heard gunfire and that she needed to come right away. Alicia and Marquis talked to 3 other neighbors. An elderly black man from the apartment across the hall, Mr. Williams, confirmed the time of the shooting and the sound of a car leaving. He said Kira lived quietly, worked in city government, and rarely threw parties or had many guests. Good, well-mannered girl she was, he said, shaking his graying head. After the divorce, she became quite withdrawn, stopped saying hello in the hallways, told me once that she was afraid of her ex-husband, worried he'd find her after he was released. Did she give details? Why was she afraid? Said he threatened to kill her and anyone who would meet her. Even before his arrest, he came here drunk several times, yelling under the windows, demanding she come down. The police were even called once, but he ran away when he saw a patrol car. The young couple from the apartment on the 3rd floor did not hear anything. They went to bed early and slept soundly until morning. But the woman said she saw Damien the night before, when he went up to Kira's apartment with a bag from the grocery store and a bottle of wine. Back at the crime scene apartment, the detectives once again scrutinized all the rooms. In the bedroom, Elisha found several photos in the closet that Kira had apparently hidden after the divorce. Wedding pictures, trips together, family vacations. In the photos, Trayvon Bell looked like an attractive man of athletic build with a short haircut and attentive dark eyes. "Check him against the database," she told Marquis, handing him one of the photos. Marquis pulled out a service tablet and tapped into the police database. After a few minutes, he looked up and his expression turned serious. Trayvon Bell, 34 years old. Priors for armed robbery of a gas station, robbery, unlawful possession of a firearm, disorderly conduct. Last sentence was 8 years in prison, served in the Oklahoma State Penitentiary. He paused and looked at Elisha. Escaped 3 months ago, August 7th, during a convoy transport to the prison hospital, still on the federal wanted list. Elisha and Marquis were back at the station by 11:30 in the morning, when the day shift was already fully operational. The detective department was buzzing with voices, phones ringing, keyboards tapping, the smell of coffee and cigarettes from the smoking porch lingering in the air. Elisha walked to her desk, threw her jacket on the back of her chair, and turned on her computer. Marquis settled down at a nearby desk and immediately dialed the state prison number. "I need complete information on inmate Trayvon Bell, who escaped on August 7th, he said into the receiver. "Detective Jones with the Oklahoma City Police Department murder case." While Marquis talked to prison officials, Elisha studied Trayvon's criminal record in the computer database. First arrest at 18 for stealing from a car, then misdemeanors, bar fights, DUIs. At 23, first serious conviction for armed robbery of a convenience store. 2 years in prison, early release for good behavior. Next arrest a year after his release, robbery of an elderly woman near an ATM, 4 more years in prison. After the second release, Trayvon seemed to take up his mind, got a job as a mechanic at a car service, rented an apartment, even married Kira, but he didn't last long. The latest case is a robbery at a gas station on Highway 40, Elisha read from the screen. Trayvon broke into the store with a gun, demanded money from the register and safe, got $1,200 and fled in a stolen car. Arrested 2 days later when he tried to sell the stolen car. Marquis ended the conversation and turned to his partner. Talked to the deputy warden. Trayvon was serving time in a maximum security unit, considered a problem prisoner. Fought with cellmates, disobeyed orders, got locked up twice for assaulting guards. And how did he escape? He was being taken to the prison hospital for a routine medical checkup. There were 2 guards in the convoy car, and Trayvon was handcuffed and shackled. On the way, the car broke down, the engine overheated. While one guard was calling for backup and the other was examining the hood, Trayvon somehow got free of the handcuffs and attacked them. Marquis jotted down details in his notebook. Hit one guard in the head with a metal chain from the shackles, the other with a fist to the jaw. Took their weapons and handcuff keys and fled in a convoy car. "Ooh, professional," Elisha remarked. Prepared in advance for the escape. Studied the weaknesses in the security system. The car was found 2 hours later abandoned 30 kilometers from the escape site. No sign of it since. He's on a federal wanted list, and his photos have been sent to every state, but so far to no avail. Elisha opened a file on Kira Bell. Born in Tulsa, her education is a bachelor's degree in urban planning from the University of Oklahoma. Worked in Oklahoma City government for 4 years, working on park and public space improvement projects. No criminal record, not even a traffic ticket. Met at a bar 3.5 years ago, she read her personnel file. Dated for 8 months, then married. Divorced a 1.5 years after Trayvon's arrest. Kira filed for divorce when her husband was already in jail. So she didn't wait for his release, Marquis said. Decided to start a new life without her criminal husband. They drove to City Hall to talk to Kira's co-workers. City Hall was located in the center of town, an old brick structure from the early 20th century with high ceilings and long hallways. The city planning department was on the third floor, in a spacious office with large windows and drafting tables. The head of the department, Patricia Young, met them in her office. A woman in her 50s, with a short gray haircut and a strict business suit, she looked shocked at the news of her subordinate's death. "Kira was one of our best employees," she said, offering the detectives coffee. "Responsible, punctual, had an excellent grasp of building codes and city planning. Never late, never took sick days without good reason." "How was she acting lately? Did she seem anxious or scared?" asked Alicia. "The last few months Kira really hasn't been her usual self. Became more withdrawn, often looking around outside when we went to lunch together. Asked her co-workers to walk her to her car after work a few times." Patricia took off her glasses and wiped them with a handkerchief. I asked what was wrong, but all she would say was that she was worried about her ex-husband. "Did she give details about her marriage?" "Not much. Said she married too young, didn't see her husband's true character. Trayvon started drinking, became violent, threatened her. After his arrest, she realized she could no longer live with him and filed for divorce." Marquis took notes on the supervisor's statement. "Did Kira mention any specific threats recently? Said someone was following her?" "About a month ago, she came to work very upset. Said she had gotten a phone call from a man asking where she lived and worked. The voice was unfamiliar, but the intonation seemed suspicious." Patricia thought for a moment. "She also mentioned seeing the same car several times near her house and near our office, a dark sedan with old license plates." The detectives spoke with two of Kira's closest co-workers, Jennifer Morgan and Tyrone Hall. Jennifer, a young white woman in her 30s, worked in the same office with Kira and knew her better than the others. Kira was very worried when she found out her ex-husband had escaped from prison, she was telling the detectives in the small meeting room. "She showed me a newspaper clipping about this escape and said she had to be very careful now." "Why was she so afraid of him?" asked Marquise. "During the divorce, Trayvon came to her house several times and made scandals. Yelled that he would kill her if she found another man. One time he even broke her car window and left a threatening note." Jennifer rubbed her pen nervously. "Kira wanted a restraining order against him approaching her, but her lawyer said there wasn't enough evidence." "And what did she say about the new boyfriend, Damien?" "They met at a coffee shop a few months ago. Damien often took flights through Oklahoma City and would stop here for a day or two. Kira said he was kind, quiet, didn't drink or smoke, the complete opposite of her ex-husband." Jennifer sighed, but she kept worrying that Trayvon would find out about her new relationship and do something terrible. Tyrone Hall, a black man in his 40s, confirmed his colleague's account. "Kira became very cautious after her ex-husband ran away, changed routes on her way to work, never walked alone in the dark, had a locksmith change the locks on her apartment." "When did she change the locks?" asked Alicia. 2 weeks ago, maybe a little more. Said she wanted to feel safe at home." Tyrone shook his head. Apparently, that didn't help. After the conversations in the administration office, the detectives drove to Reynolds Transportation, where Damian Rice worked. The office was located in an industrial area of the city, next to a large warehouse and truck parking lot. The manager, Robert Clark, a full, middle-aged man in work clothes, told them about the deceased driver. "Damien worked for us for 2 years, was one of our best drivers," he said, pulling up an employee's personnel file. "Never late, never violated the rules of freight transportation, customers were always satisfied. Tulsa, Dallas, Oklahoma City route, drove industrial goods and equipment." "Did he talk about his personal life? Mention a girlfriend?" asked Markey. "Said he was dating a nice girl in Oklahoma City. He was planning on maybe transferring to our local branch so he wouldn't have to go on long hauls." Robert took off his baseball cap and scratched his balding head. "Damien was a quiet guy, never got into fights, never drank on the job. He had a dream of saving up money and buying his own truck, becoming an independent trucker." "And lately he seemed worried? Said someone was bothering him?" "No, Didn't notice anything like that. Except last week he asked if he could take a vacation for a few days. Said a friend was having some trouble and he needed to help her out. Back at the station after lunch, the detectives continued to review the case file. Elisha contacted the phone company to get records of calls to Kira's number over the past month. Marquis requested surveillance footage from cameras around the victim's home and near her work. "Look at this," he said, pointing to the computer screen. "Stolen car database. 8 dark sedans have been stolen in and around Oklahoma City in the last 2 months. 2 of them are still missing." Elisha studied the list. Honda Accord 2010, black, stolen 3 weeks ago outside a shopping center. Toyota Camry 2012, dark blue, stolen 5 days ago from a parking lot outside a hospital. She made a note in her notebook. "Put out an APB on those cars to all patrol officers. Trayvon may have used one of them." What about the phone records? Not a lot of calls. Work, girlfriends, mom in Tulsa. But there are some interesting numbers. Elisha showed the printout. 4 calls from different numbers in the last 2 weeks. All calls are short, 30 to 40 seconds each. The numbers aren't registered, apparently disposable calling cards. Trayvon was checking to see if she was home, Marquis suggested. Studying her daily routine, finding out when she gets home from work. Forensic technician Ronald brought up the results of the preliminary analysis of the crime scene. "The fingerprints on the front door do not belong to the victims," he reported. "A few clear prints on the doorknob and jamb. Sent them to the lab for comparison with the database." "What about the bullets and casings?" "All 37 casings are from the same weapon, a 9mm pistol. Judging by the marks on the brass, the barrel was worn, scratched. The weapon may not be new or remodeled." Ronald showed pictures of the shell casings under magnification. Bullets were recovered from the bodies and walls, standard lead ones, no special coatings, the kind they sell at any gun store. Elisha studied the diagram of the apartment with the locations of the casings marked. Shooter started from the front door, then moved to the center of the living room. He fired several shots while standing over the bodies, control shots to the head. "Cold-blooded and methodical," Marquis agreed. "Didn't panic, took his time, made sure the victims were dead, then calmly walked away." By the end of the day, the detectives had a clear picture of events. Trayvon Bell, who had escaped from prison 3 months ago, had tracked down his ex-wife, learned of her new relationship, and planned the murder. He had been following Kira for weeks, studying her routines, perhaps even calling her from different numbers. On Saturday night, when Kira was at home with her new boyfriend, Trayvon came to her apartment and killed them both. "Classic jealousy murder," Elisha summarized, closing the case file. Ex-husband couldn't handle the fact that his wife had found another man. "All that remains is to find him," Marquis added. 3 months on the loose is plenty of time to get new papers, change his appearance, find a hiding place. Elisha looked at Trayvon's picture from the prison file. A tall, muscular man with a short haircut, alert eyes, and a scar on his left cheek. He looked like a common criminal, the kind she'd seen hundreds of in her career. But this criminal had killed 2 innocent people only because of his inability to let go of the past. Tuesday morning, Elisha and Marquis began a systematic search for Trayvon Bell. The first thing they did was make a list of all known addresses where he might be hiding. Relatives, friends, former cellmates who had already been released. The database showed contacts Trayvon had maintained before his arrest, people who had visited him in prison, addresses where he had lived at different times in his life. "Mother died 5 years ago, never knew his father," Marquis read the dossier. "Only relative is maternal aunt Gloria Bell, 62 years old. Lives in a trailer park on the outskirts of town, works as a janitor at a school." They drove to Trayvon's aunt's address. Sunnyvale Trailer Park was in an industrial area, between an auto junkyard and a chemical plant. Old mobile homes stood in tight rows on small lots, most in need of repair. The air smelled of exhaust fumes and industrial waste. Gloria Bell appeared to be a short, full-bodied woman with gray hair gathered in a bundle. She greeted the detectives warily, not inviting them into the house, talking through the mosquito netting of the front door. "I don't know anything about Trayvon," she stated at once. "Haven't seen him in 2 years, even before his arrest. He came to ask for money then, and I said no, and we had a fight." "Mrs. Bell, your nephew is suspected of a double murder," Elisha explained patiently. "If he has contacted you since his escape, that is very important information." "He hasn't," Gloria replied sharply. "And even if he had, I wouldn't have helped him in any way. Trayvon chose his path a long time ago when he started messing with bad people." "And who are the bad people? Did he have friends in criminal circles?" Gloria was quiet for a moment, pondering the answer. "When he was in his early 20s, he got involved with some types who dealt in stolen goods. They repaired cars in an underground garage, redid license plates, sold parts. I warned him it would end badly, but he wouldn't listen. Do you remember names or addresses? One was named Deshaun, a tall, skinny guy with gold teeth. The other was Vincent, a fat guy with tattoos on his arms. I don't remember anyone else, nor do I want to." Marquis jotted down names in his notebook. "And where was this garage located?" "Somewhere on the east side of town, in an industrial area. But that was over 10 years ago. Things must have changed." The next stop was the auto repair shop where Trayvon had worked as a mechanic before his last arrest. Owner Carl Miller, an older white man in work overalls, didn't remember his former employee very well. "Trayvon was a good mechanic, it's true," he said, wiping his hands with an oily rag. "But he had a nasty temper, fought with other workers, was rude to customers, came to work hungover a few times." "Did he have friends among his co-workers? Someone who could help him?" "Most of the guys didn't like him, but there was one, Antonio Rivera. They'd sometimes have a beer together after work and talk about cars and girls." Carl pointed to the far corner of the garage. "Antonio still works here. You can talk to him." Antonio Rivera turned out to be a black man, about 35, medium height, with an eagle tattooed on his forearm. He was working under the hood of an old pickup truck and didn't immediately notice the detectives. When Elisha introduced herself, his expression turned wary. "Trayvon? Haven't seen him since he was arrested," he said without stopping work. "We weren't close friends, just had the occasional drink together." "He didn't contact you after he escaped? Didn't ask for help?" "No, of course not. It's not like I'm crazy to help an escaped convict." Antonio lifted his head from under the hood. "But if you want to know the truth, I'm not surprised he escaped. Trayvon always said he'd never rot in prison." "And what did he say about his ex-wife?" "Hated her," Antonio answered without hesitation. "Said she betrayed him, filed for divorce when he was in jail and couldn't defend himself, swore he'd settle accounts with her sooner or later." Elisha felt everything inside clench. "Did he threaten her specifically?" "Said that if she found another man, he'd kill them both, that no one had the right to touch his woman, not even his ex." Antonio wiped his hands with a rag. "I thought it was just drunken chatter, didn't take it seriously." The detectives spent the rest of the morning checking other addresses on the list. A former cellmate of Trayvon's named Marcus Hall lived in a cheap rental apartment in a disadvantaged neighborhood, but swore he hadn't seen or heard from him since his release a year ago. Another acquaintance, a drug dealer nicknamed Slim, refused to talk to police at all. After lunch, they met with Detective Jones's informant, a small-time crook named Tyler who regularly gave the police information in exchange for leniency in arrests. The meeting took place at a diner on the edge of town, with noisy air conditioners running and loud music playing. Tyler was a nervous, skinny guy of about 25, with a twitching eye and a habit of constantly looking around. He ordered a coffee and got straight to the point. "Heard you were looking for Trayvon Bell," he said in a low voice. "I may have something of interest." "Speak," Marquise said briefly. 2 weeks ago, maybe a little more, saw him in the East Side neighborhood. He was walking down 5th Street near the old tobacco company warehouse. Couldn't believe my eyes at first. I thought he was in jail. Tyler took a sip of coffee with trembling hands. But it was definitely him. Haircut short, wearing a dark jacket and jeans. Was he alone? Asked Elisha. Yeah, walking fast, like he was in a hurry to get somewhere. Got into a dark car that was parked by the curb and drove off. I just didn't get a good look at the license plate number. What kind of car was it? A sedan, dark, old. Honda or Toyota, I can't say for sure, but it looked beat up, with a dent in the rear fender. Marquis wrote down the informant's statement. Didn't notice anything else? Where was he going? Toward the center of town. He also looked thinner than before. Apparently, the life of a fugitive isn't sugar. Tyler glanced toward the door. That's all I know, and if anyone asks, we haven't met at all. After talking to the informant, the detectives drove to the neighborhood where Tyler had seen Trayvon. The East Side was one of the most dysfunctional neighborhoods in the city. Abandoned warehouses, vacant lots, cheap motels, and drug houses. The perfect place for someone who wanted to go unnoticed. They drove several blocks around the old tobacco warehouse, showing Trayvon's picture to the locals. Most refused to talk to the police or claimed they hadn't seen anyone. Only an elderly woman who sold newspapers by the bus stop nodded when she recognized the face in the photo. This guy has bought newspapers from me several times, she said. Always paid in change, didn't talk. Last time I saw him was about 10 days ago. And what kind of car did he drive? A dark, shabby one. Always parks in different places. I guess he doesn't want to attract attention. Back at the station, Elisha contacted the video analysis unit. Technician Daniel Chen had already spent several hours reviewing surveillance footage in the area around Kira's house and near her work. Found something interesting, he said, pointing to the computer screen. The camera at the corner of 10th Street and Main Street captured a dark sedan driving past the victim's house several times on different days. The screen showed blurry footage of the vehicle driving slowly down the street. The quality of the image didn't allow the driver's face to be seen, but the car did look old and shabby. Are there any recordings from other cameras? Yeah, this one right here is from outside the city hall 5 days ago. Daniel switched the image. The same car was parked in the parking lot across from the entrance for about an hour. The driver was sitting inside watching the building. Elisha scrutinized the footage. Can you zoom in on the license plate? I'll try, but the recording quality isn't very good. The technician worked with the image, and the license plate became a little clearer. I think it's a Honda Accord. Black, license plate starts with the letter A. Marquis checked the list of stolen cars. 2010-year-old Honda Accord, black, license plate ACG 457, stolen 3 weeks ago outside the Quail Springs shopping center. So Trayvon used the stolen car for surveillance, Elisha summarized. Studied his ex-wife's daily routine, figured out when she was home, when she was at work. Daniel showed some more footage from various cameras. This one here is from Saturday, the day of the murder. 7:30 in the evening, the same car drove down 10th Street toward the victim's house. Is there any footage of him driving away after the murder? Unfortunately, no. The camera that would have captured that was shut down for maintenance. The technician shrugged. But the footage shows that he followed Kira for at least a week, possibly longer. Elisha studied the timestamps on the records. Trayvon had shown up outside Kira's home and work at various times, morning, afternoon, evening. He studied her habits, memorized when she left and returned, who visited her. Professional training, she told Marquis. He didn't act spontaneously, planned the murder in advance. And picked a moment when Kira wasn't home alone, the partner added. Wanted to kill both her and the new boyfriend. Detective Rodriguez of the Auto Theft Unit brought additional information about the stolen Honda. The car was stolen from a shopping center parking lot during daylight hours, he reported. The owner left it for 2 hours while she went shopping. When she returned, the vehicle was gone. Any surveillance footage of the mall? There is, but it's poor quality. You can see the thief knew what he was doing, picked the lock professionally, started the car without a key in less than a minute. Rodriguez showed the camera photos. A man of average height wearing a baseball cap and dark glasses. No face is visible, but the build fits the description of Trayvon Bell. By the end of the day, detectives had a full picture of the preparations for the crime. Trayvon escaped from prison 3 months ago, spent several weeks looking for his ex-wife, learned her new address and place of employment. Then he stole a car and began a systematic surveillance. He studied Kira's daily routine, learned about her new relationship with Damien, picked the right moment to attack. It remains to be seen where he's hiding now, Alicia said, closing the case file. The stolen car is the key, Marquis replied. If we find it, we'll find him too. Alicia sent out an APB on the black Honda Accord to all patrol crews in the city and suburbs. She also asked them to check all gas stations, motels, and stores in the East Side neighborhood. Maybe someone else had seen Trayvon or his car. Wednesday morning, Alicia received a call from Patrol Officer Davis. He was on night shift duty in the East Side neighborhood, and around 4 a.m. spotted a black Honda Accord parked behind an abandoned textile mill warehouse. The license plate matched the orientation of the stolen car. The car was parked in the shade behind the building, well hidden from the road, Davis recounted over the phone. I didn't get any closer so as not to spook the suspect. Called for backup right away. Right now, the warehouse is surrounded. Alicia quickly woke Marquis up, and a half hour later, they were on their way to the scene. On the way, she contacted Sergeant Thomas, the Rapid Response Team commander, and asked him to prepare an assault team. The warehouse of the Delta Textile Factory was located in an industrial area on the southern edge of the city. The 2-story brick building from the 50s had long been unused. The windows were boarded up, the walls were covered in graffiti, and the area was overgrown with weeds. Alicia and Marquis met Sergeant Thomas outside the command center in the communications van. 6 patrol crews and an 8-man rapid response team took up positions around the building. The warehouse has 4 entrances: main entrance from the front, service entrance on the side, 2 emergency exits in the back, Sergeant Thomas explained, showing a diagram. All the entrances are locked, but the locks are old. Faint light from flashlight or candles was noticed in several windows on the 2nd floor. The operation began at 9:30 in the morning. The rapid response team took up positions at all entrances, with snipers positioned on the roofs of neighboring buildings. Sergeant Thomas gave the command to assault. The main entrance was breached in seconds. Police officers in body armor stormed into the building with guns at the ready, flashlights cutting through the twilight of the abandoned warehouse. Inside smelled of damp, mold, and the remains of human habitation. "First floor clear," came over the walkie-talkie. "Stairs to the 2nd floor are blocked by furniture," another officer reported. "Someone set up a barricade on purpose." The stormtroopers dismantled the barricade and went upstairs. In one of the rooms, they found a makeshift dwelling, a mattress, a sleeping bag, canned food, and bottles of water. A gasoline canister and a portable gas burner stood in the corner. "Suspect located," came an exclamation over the radio. Alicia heard Sergeant Thomas ordering them to discard their weapons and get down on the floor. No shots were fired. A few minutes later came the report of an unresisted arrest. The detectives went up to the 2nd floor and saw Trayvon Bell in handcuffs. He looked thinner than the prison photos. Gaunt face, unwashed hair, 3-day stubble. A seized 9mm Glock pistol lay beside him. "Trayvon Bell, you're under arrest on suspicion of double murder," Alicia announced. "You have the right to remain silent." Trayvon looked up and grinned. "Know my rights, detective. It's not the first time I've dealt with the police." His voice was calm, without fear or remorse. Alicia noted this cold indifference, the way professional criminals behaved. The Marquis looked around the hideout. Found canned goods, water, sleeping gear. Judging by the trash, someone's been living here for at least a week. Trayvon chose a room with windows in different directions to control the approaches. The barricade was professionally made of heavy cabinets. He had a supply of food and water and a canister of gasoline, perhaps for arson if discovered. At the station, Trayvon was placed in a holding cell while detectives prepared for questioning. Alicia studied the entire case file so she could ask precise questions. The interrogation began at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Trayvon sat in handcuffs, with assigned defense attorney Gerald King beside him. "Mr. Bell, where were you on Saturday night between 8 and midnight?" began Alicia. "I don't remember. Walked around town, had a beer at a bar." "Which one?" "I don't remember the name. There are hundreds of them in the city." Marquis showed the surveillance photos. "Is that your car outside Kira Bell's house?" Trayvon studied the pictures without emotion. "I don't know whose car that is. I wasn't outside my ex-wife's house." "How do you explain that this stolen car was found near the warehouse where you were hiding?" "Found it abandoned. Didn't know it was stolen." Alicia showed the ballistics report. "The gun seized from you fired the bullets that killed Kira and Damien. Explain." Trayvon shrugged. "Maybe someone planted it, or the experts got it wrong." "And your fingerprints on the front door of Kira's apartment?" "Been there a long time ago when we were married. The prints were preserved." Alicia changed tactics. "Tell me about your relationship with Kira. Did you love her?" For the first time, the expression on her face changed. Anger flashed in his eyes. "Kira was my wife. I gave her everything: a home, protection, love. And she betrayed me when I was in trouble." "Did the divorce make you angry?" "Of course it did. A wife is supposed to support her husband, not leave him for other men." "How did you feel when you found out about her new boyfriend?" asked Marquise. Trayvon was silent for a moment. "She dishonored our marriage, made a laughingstock out of me. And you decided to kill them." "I didn't kill anyone. You have no proof, only evidence." Alicia showed the crime scene photos. 37 bullets. "You wanted to make sure they were dead?" Trayvon looked at the pictures without emotion. "I don't know what you're talking about. Kira was afraid of you. Changed locks, avoided seeing you, asked you to walk her to her car. If she was afraid, she was guilty. Innocent people don't get scared." That cynicism stunned Alicia. "Guilty of what? Divorcing a criminal husband? Of wanting to start a new life? In breaking your vows of fidelity? Marriage is forever, till death do you part, as they say in the church," Trayvon calmly replied. "And you have decided to separate them by death?" "I repeat, I did not kill anyone. Accuse all you want, but you can't prove anything." The interrogation lasted 3 hours. Trayvon steadfastly denied the accusations, attributing each piece of evidence to coincidence. Alicia realized there would be no confession. He was a seasoned criminal. "One last question. If you could go back, what would you change?" Trayvon was silent for a long moment, then looked directly at the detective. "I would never marry a woman who doesn't understand the meaning of fidelity." After the interview, the detectives met with prosecutor David Harris. "We have weapons, prints, witness statements, camera footage," he enumerated. "The motive is obvious: jealousy. Planning is proven by the surveillance of the victims." "And a confession?" asked Marquis. "Not necessary. The physical evidence is enough for a jury. Trayvon Bell will be charged with double murder in the first degree. If found guilty, life in prison." That evening, Alicia reviewed the case file. Everything was clear: the motive, the planning, the execution. Trayvon would get a just punishment, but it wouldn't bring back 2 innocent people. Kira never got to start a new life, and Damien never got to realize his dream of owning his own truck. The case was closed.